Spooky season greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to another bonus episode Elective brought to you by the faculty and staff of Hacker/University. It is I, your Hacker/University Slasher-in-Chief, and today I am joined by our esteemed Dean of the Damned, Chel.
They're all going to laugh at you.
As we continue through the spooky season, we at Hacker/University want to equip you with all the tips, tricks, and skills that you're going to need to make the most out of the season. Now, this is one of the many bonus episodes we are offering for free all season long to our listeners, and today's lesson is one that will focus on inclusivity, friendship, and a little bit of exposure therapy. This week, class is in session on how to train your scaredy cat 101.
Yes, we know them, we love them, we have them in our lives. Maybe we are reformed scaredy cats. They're the folks in our lives that they promptly leave the room when you mention you get to do a horror movie for movie night, or they're ones that you got to hold a little closer at a sleepover after watching a spooky movie, because they're gonna see Freddy Krueger in the shadows and every bump in the night is gonna spook them. So we have them and we know them and we love them, but all hope is not lost, Kris, for them.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's such a great play, right? They're the ones you gotta hold a little bit closer after watching a movie. Yeah, that's real cute. I don't know that I have ever had specifically that experience. Like, I've had scaredy cats in my life, and I am typically, well, I guess in more ways than one in other areas of life, but I'm usually the Sherpa of these kind of experiences where I'm not going to be the jerk that tries to just expose you to the worst of the worst, or just what I think is the best way to enter horror, but really rather a curated experience. I found that I haven't actually, maybe it's because I've been more selective of people, but I haven't had too much of the non-horror fan interaction. I feel like I had that a few years ago, and I think I've gotten a little bit more selective to just be like, all right, I'm done working this hard.
Sure, absolutely. Sometimes they you don't know that they're non-horror fans until you get close to them.
Mm-hmm.
I am happily married to a proud and vocal scaredy cat. I've often referred to him as the horror novice husband, Evan, but slowly but surely over the last couple of years, he has embraced the non-horror to horror pipeline a little bit. Yeah, he used to be anti-horror completely. Like, even just a spooky, kind of creepy episode of a TV show would freak him out a little bit. We've done some exposure therapy, and he's getting there.
It's giving the season of healing. It's giving conversion. It's giving welcome to the family.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and absolutely a lot of, and he still has his lines, and we'll kind of talk about that as we get into some of the tips and tricks, but he's got his lines that I don't push. He's got boundaries that I don't test, but there are quite a few horror movies that I'm able to say, oh, you should come watch this with me. I think you'll enjoy it. I don't think you're going to lose sleep over this one.
Yeah, I think such a delicate balance of just trying to bring someone into something that you love is the idea of being able to know them well enough to understand how to be a good steward of that experience. I think that's a really special thing. And the more you know someone, the more likely you are to be, I think, more cognizant and just more careful and aware of what that means. Like, for example, I know I've told a story in the past where I had an ex who could not do horror movies at all. All of a sudden, we're watching House of the Devil at a friend's suggestion, and then bam, someone gets their face shot off, right? That's too intense. You don't want to do that to someone. And if you do, wow, I don't know. That's not cool, man. Maybe reconsider your approach to things. But I think the ability to know someone and to create a safe space with which to explore, experiment, and really just like start building up some muscle. I think I liken it to the idea of just doing a little bit of conditioning before you try to do an Iron Man. You know what I mean?
That's a perfect way of explaining it. You're not doing a marathon your first time out. You need to see what your strengths are. You need to see where the weak points or the sensitive spots are before you can throw them in again to a really intense horror movie. But kind of on the flip side of those things, we love horror. And sometimes, when the non-horror friends in our life decide, you know what, I want to watch a horror movie. It's the spooky season. I'd like to embrace this. Sometimes we want to just really throw everything at them. And, that sometimes can be really overwhelming for folks.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think everyone who has ever tried to convert a scaredy cat has definitely come from a place of love with it. But yeah, sometimes we do get really zealous and excited. And then, you fly a little too close to the sun and you got to walk it back a little bit.
Yeah. All of a sudden you're really recommending like high tension and someone's like, oh, I don't know, this is a little bit too much for me.
As a little bit much, and and you got to pry their shoulders down from their ears walking out of the theater a couple times.
Yeah, I think I would give the example that I would never show someone Terrifier for their first horror movie with me specifically.
Absolutely. Yeah. Terrifier is a pretty intense one. Anyone that's really just, especially gore heavy and kind of in for the shock value. The Saw movies are kind of tough, but there are also a lot of other people like Horror Novice Husband where he can do the gore. He likes a good slasher, things like that. But if it's paranormal, he's out. He's down the street. His reasoning being like, we live in a house, Chel. It could be haunted, it's almost too real for him. He can understand, like, probably a masked slasher probably is not going to come, he hates camping. So we're not going to get killed while we're going on a camping trip. Yeah. But there could be a creepy thing in the house.
Yeah. Okay. Now I need to know, has Horror Novice Husband watched The Strangers?
He has not, but that is one I have considered showing him. And I think this year with the new one coming out, that might be one we show him.
Yeah. Listen, there's a reason why people are less afraid of a slasher and more afraid of faith and spirituality and paranormal stuff, right? I'm just curious, what is your husband's background with that? When you think about people who are raised with some kind of something, there's usually like a level of familiarity or a level of vulnerability where that feels like it triggers something, I think, from maybe our childhood. And it just like makes you a little bit more good soil for that kind of thing.
I think a lot of it is he grew up in the Midwest. He grew up being able, like, if something's coming, I have to protect myself or my loved ones. I can fight them. I can fight them off. They're corporeal. Mm-hmm. But the paranormal, he didn't grow up particularly religious, but in the Midwest, we kind of have our own little spirituality beliefs kind of things and just, believes in the presence of evil. And, sometimes it's a little bit trickier to identify or maybe fight those off. So I think a lot of that is you can't fight that off as easily and
you can't see,
more likely to kind of take you by surprise. Yeah, mm-hmm. Exactly. You can see a slasher coming, walking a mile away sometimes, but if something's in your house, it's infiltrated, it's in, and you can't see it, and it kind of has the upper hand. So he didn't like not having the upper hand potentially.
I mean, listen, that's just good strategy.
I get it.
Being cognizant of the situation, right? People who are consistently on alert and looking around them to examine something, right? From a place of like a hunter-gatherer protector type of person.
Yes.
Versus someone, and I'll give you this example. Gosh, this was many, many moons ago, but we were reviewing the film He Knows You're Alone. And during this conversation, we were just exploring this dynamic of just the concept of that movie. And Peach, who was on the show, was like, listen, I am a over 6 foot athletic man, and I've never been afraid for my life. If I go running in the middle of the night or I'm walking in the parking garage, I am not as afraid of what's going to happen to me. But if you put a woman, even if I'm the nicest guy on earth, a few feet ahead of me, she's far more aware of just her situational surroundings and just wondering like, okay, is this person going to do something to me? So I think there's like that interesting dynamic, right? That predisposes us to having a much different relationship with different types of horror.
Absolutely. And definitely, the gender side of things, I think definitely, I know with slashers and things like that, I'm not very tall. I'm 5'3". I'm not very fast. So yeah, slashers probably scare me a little bit more than like a ghost. 'Cause I dabble in some of those things. So I kind of feel like, oh, maybe I could. I've already kind of opened my brain and my mind to that stuff. Maybe I could find a way, or I'd be open to those non-normal practices to address something like that, where my husband, he has a bug out back, he's got all these plans, like if A goes sideways, B is what happens. So but you can't plan for ghosts, especially if a ghost is in your house and knows your every move. So I think it's the being caught by surprise that guys don't like.
This is begging another question. When is his birthday?
His birthday is the 4th of July, if you can believe it.
Oh, he's a Cancer.
He's a Cancer.
Okay, there's Virgo somewhere in his chart, I bet. All that planning.
Oh, I'm sure. I haven't done his chart, funny enough. Oh, I bet he has a Virgo in his chart somewhere.
Yeah. I'd be curious. We're going to follow up on Horror Novice, but
we should.
All of this to say, I think it's very important as you go out on this quest to bring more people into your passions, to just get a better understanding of who you are, and also being able to put yourself in the experiences of others or in the mindset of others to get a better understanding of what kind of horror you might want to introduce them to. Now, there's a spectrum, right? You can really start off in a place that's universally acceptable for genuinely every person, but it's going to allow you to really follow a good fork in the road and understand what is the end destination, what is the place where I think they could arrive, and really build up in terms of the intensity of horror.
Yes, for sure. I mean, even us big horror fans, we all started somewhere. We all have flavors of horror that we fancy most and ones that we would really rather not, watch unless we really, really had to. So I definitely think there's some ways, and we're going to give you some tips here in a few minutes of trying to, gauge that out. And again, do it in a way that everyone feels welcome, safe. There's no pressure to, hit the pause button, to walk it back and sort of sort things out. But yeah, there are some good entries into the world of horror that you can get a read on of, like, okay, you really responded well to that. This one, you kind of got a little weird on this, or maybe we don't want to push this envelope a little too more.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good call. There are the folks who they are scaredy cats because they're genuinely afraid of everything. There are the folks who I think just don't like the idea of gore, who are into the idea of like maybe some more suspense, thriller action, but cannot do something horrifically violent. For example, we talked about The Strangers, and I think about my sister, my oldest sister actually, who loves horror movies. We grew up all watching horror movies together, but there was something that changed about her, and also changed with my sister when they became mothers, where they just have like a little bit less of a tolerance for torture and like brutality. My oldest sister, my older sister can still pretty much hack it, but my oldest sister cannot stomach watching The Strangers because of the scene with a lot of direct stabbing and lingering in that. So I'm really excited to dive into the tips, because I think it's going to explore a lot of different styles of people who may be in your life, but also B, some universal truths that really set you up for success.
No, I absolutely agree. Yeah, we all come from different places. And there's a lot of folks, me being one of them, I avoided horror movies for years because I just didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know. And then you watch it, that wasn't so bad. So, yeah. So there's a lot of great ways to bring them in. And we can help you give the rundown, a nice little study guide here of how to train your scaredy cats.
Oh, let's do it. Let's start with lesson number 1, which, to my understanding, just ease into it. Take it easy, Poppy.
Absolutely. I know, like we said, it is when someone says, hey, especially our non-horror friends who are very much proudly non-horror, say, you know what? I think I kind of want to watch a horror movie. You get so excited. You've got a running list in your head of, oh my gosh, I want to show them all of these movies. Pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call. You want to be able to pump the brakes, assess, really make sure that the first one you pick is a quality one that will allow you to really, A, bring them alongside you, but B, spark enough interest to not be a total turnoff. I've made the mistake in the past because I feel like Halloween from 1978 is such a safe film to show folks because it's a little bit of violence. But at this point, it's so classic and it's so old that I find it to be very, very safe ground. I showed it to Allie and she was like, oh God, I hate this. Like, I don't hate the concept of Michael Myers, but she found it super boring because of how slow it was, right? So there's that also kind of sweet spot that you have to consider.
Yes, absolutely. I remember when Evan, he wanted to start getting into a little bit more. We'd watched a couple slashers. He'll watch the Halloween movies. He's probably seen A Nightmare on Elm Street, but the reason we kind of figured out the paranormal was not for him. We did watch The Conjuring.
Ooh.
And that's a personal favorite of mine. I love it. I grew up, it was one of my, really special favorite ones in college. It was not for him. We were watching it in broad daylight. He was watching it. He had like his hat pulled down low. He was watching it through. So we learned pretty quickly, like, okay, that's a bar. That's kind of the red zone there. We'll work our way down from there. But, and I know a lot of times people, you want to have this huge movie marathon and almost kind of think like, oh, if I go scary, super scary, like if I hit that top bar, then everything won't seem as scary. But they might not want to come back to the table after that real high bar that you've set of scary. So it's better to work your way up. It's a marathon and not a sprint when you're training your scaredy cat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other side of this spectrum, right? If you have a scaredy cat, or maybe you have just like an apathetic cat who's just thinks horror is a bottom tier genre and just is bored by it. Not saying that anyone in my life is, but I have some coworkers who have said that phrase to me, which is wild. I think there's also something to be said about employing maybe a 3-scene rule. Instead of squandering the rest of the runtime and trying to force something to happen, be able to be nimble and pause it, maybe change to something else, and really just try to curate an experience that's going to bear some fruit for you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially in this day and age with streaming, there is so many other options. So yeah, after a half hour, maybe you can kind of see the actions ratcheting up, or maybe there's a first kill. There's kind of something that's gone on. Check in, pause. Hey, how are we feeling about this? Do you want to see more? Do you want to just pivot? Is this not for you right now? Because you can always go back to it, or maybe not. But yeah, be willing to press pause and pivot and change mid-movie if you need to. Life's too short to watch movies that you're not into.
Yeah, absolutely.
That goes for horror and non-horror fans alike.
Absolutely. And I think another thing to consider here is when you think of the principle of just like easing into it, a good way to do that is to starting with what's known, really known variables. For example, how many people already know who Ghostface is? How many people know who Michael Myers is? And is that a safe place to start if their faces are just so iconic and familiar?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely helps, even down to the Pennywise and the Freddy Kruegers and Chucky. They're all over the place. They've been memed. They've been parodied on different shows, and they're everywhere. So they're already kind of desensitized to those creepy imagery, So introducing, and sometimes that's how you bring them. It's like, oh, well, I've seen that guy everywhere, Freddy Krueger, and like, oh, now I get the backstory. So it helps them feel like they're not at a disadvantage. Because again, us horror fans, we can rattle off horror trivia like it's nothing. But for a lot of these folks, they don't have those backstories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I think it's a really makes it even more important. Yeah. When you go to start with a familiar, pick out an entry that has an easier price of admission. I don't know that jumping straight into the end of a franchise that has a lot of continuity is the best take to make, right? Don't create a lot of confusion. But if you were to say, like, use a Halloween franchise, for example, there are so many different points of reference within that timeline where you have a selection of movies that you can start from. For example, not that I think I should really start the Halloween experience with Halloween 6, but if I knew that one of my friends really loved Paul Rudd, my approach to that would be, hey, do you want to see Paul Rudd and what was technically the first movie he did that was filmed before Clueless? When you get them to kind of hook into that, even outside of like the iconic figure, I think there's something to be said there.
Oh, I totally agree, especially, with like the Paul Stephen Rudd, or a lot of jokes. I know we joke about Busta Rhymes.
Oh, yeah.
So I made enough jokes to enough people that they're like, okay, well, what is this? And then you show them Halloween Resurrection, which you could spend a whole ton of time explaining it, or you can just say, you know what, let's have fun. Like, here's Michael Myers. It's a Michael Myers movie. Enjoy the run. You get a little Jamie Lee Curtis in there, who is thankfully very widely known outside of the horror sphere. So that helps too, is kind of having this be like, oh, I know that person, and kind of reminds them, oh, it's just a movie. You know, I've seen Jamie Lee Curtis in Freaky Friday. So like it takes you out of it a little bit, which sometimes non-horror fans need that exit to be able to step out of it.
100%. So I think there's something to be said there. Obviously, familiar villains. We also have familiar faces and just people to hold on to. Chel, what's another tip for you that you have?
I like to give my scaredy cats the power to what I call pick your poison. So if, you know, of course, I could rattle off all these different recommendations, but for them, it's just names. It's just titles. I guess that one sounds good, but who knows? So a lot of times, especially with horror novice Evan or a lot of some of my other friends who they dabble in horror, but they don't love it all the time, I'll usually give them either like, well, these are these couple movies. Maybe they're coming out on the Hacker Slash podcast soon. So I'm like, well, I want to watch these anyways. Do any of these appeal to you? Or I'll even give them a theme. I'll say, you know what? I'm feeling a zombie movie. Like, you know, I'll tell them that morning before I go to work, like, I'm feeling a zombie movie. Look around, read some synopses. If you want to read the whole Wikipedia article before, fine. I let them kind of pick their poison of like, hey, what do you think sounds interesting? Because then we get to learn what they like, what really appealed to them. And they're a little bit more bought in because they picked it. It's not happening to them. They chose to have this experience.
Yeah, there's something different intellectually about suffering through the pain that you've chosen than suffering through the pain that has been thrust upon you. That is honestly power move there, Chel. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And honestly, there are some times, especially with Evan, where he will bring up like, oh, well, I noticed this one. I think to his credit, which one was it? I think it was Maggie, the zombie movie. You know, the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I
haven't seen it.
Oh, it's wonderful. But I'm pretty sure if I remember, I was like a zombies thing. It might have been during 31 days. It might have just been a vibe or something. But he was like, oh, well, I looked at this, you know, Maggie and Arnold Schwarzenegger. He loves Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's an action movie guy. So like, all right, watch it. And I was like, yeah, it's an incredible movie. So sometimes from a non-horror perspective, you get some gems that maybe you wouldn't think of before. Because, you know, you've got blinders. You see everything all the time. So
damn.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that. Okay. So just to recap so far, tip number 1, ease into it. Tip number 2, start with the familiar faces. Tip number 3, the Chel special. Let them pick their poison. It's like summoning a demon. You know what I mean? I absolutely love that. Yes. Okay. I can't say that I've had a lot of experience with that. Typically when I have a lot of folks choosing the movie, it's because we are well on the path and then they see on TikTok or see online that there's another movie that they're hearing about they think they'd be up for and interested in. I think that's great. I think I too often have been asked like, hey, what's a good movie I should watch versus, hey, I've heard some stuff about this. What can I do? So maybe I need to create some more space to give them the power of choice.
Yeah. And that goes back to the familiar. There's been a couple horror movies that Evan has seen, you know, scrolling on TikTok like, oh, well, what do you know about this one? And sometimes I'm like, knowing you, that probably wouldn't be the best. But there's other ones that's like, yeah, you know, we could go see that together. And again, he gets to kind of be like, I chose a horror movie. So yeah, social media can be great for that.
I love that so much. Okay. So we've talked about our first 3 tips. Tip number 4, and I think this is honestly a brilliant one from you, giving TMI. Now, you could think about this in a couple different ways, right? 1, kind of the homework that you alluded to, spoiling the movie up front, versus B, maybe like a trigger warning. I think people get used to that. But the other aspect that you have highlighted here, Chel, is the ability to demystify and make it less scary by sharing a lot of insight and information about how these things were achieved on film.
Yeah. I mean, again, us horror fans, we know our horror worlds inside and out. We know how special effects are made. We know the greats like Tom Savini. So use that to your advantage, especially if you kind of see maybe this is the movie where maybe they're getting a little squeamish because it's gory. This is a great one for gory movies. Is mentioned like, oh, well, that's like, oh, you notice how it ran this way because it's made with this. Or in The Evil Dead, the blood is green. Why? Because he didn't want an R rating. So kind of giving them just, too much information. Oh, where did you see that actor before? Like, oh, so-and-so was in this comedy movie.
Mhm.
Great. Kind of helps them loosen up the shoulders a little bit because it's just a movie.
Exactly that. And you've also highlighted even a couple of folks, right? Like we know Elvira is really good about giving context to a movie, about really jumping into how this movie was made, etc. I know that you're a big fan of Joe Bob and The Last Drive-In. I personally haven't partaken in The Last Drive-In, but I know that's something that people really latch onto, which also makes me think, hey, if you're a patron, listen to our watch-alongs. You can have me and Paris, or me and Binks, me and Chel, me and Nathan, me and Sean, all watching a movie with you and giving that context as well.
Yes, and those are so fun, especially some of the ones, the Black Christmas one that you and Binks did. Like, that's a great one because, again, it's that excitement and that passion, and kind of shows like, all right, well, clearly, we've watched these movies and came out on the other side. They can do the same. And walking back to the last drive-in, I owe Joe Bob Briggs so much of my horror movie education because, again, I kind of came in, didn't know a ton, was starting to listen to some horror movie podcasts and stuff, but Joe Bob is really the one that started talking in an academic way to me and explaining about these directors and how behind the scenes these producers were acting this way and this is why this movie had this, and and again, kind of just breaking it down to its parts and a lot of people need that, when it's an overwhelming situation or an overwhelming scenario in a scene, being able to break it down into its parts or focus on just the one thing of like, the blood is green because they didn't want an R rating, kind of helps you maybe, fuzz out some of the other stuff that maybe is a little too intense for you. Yeah. So knowledge is power. Yeah. Always is.
100%. I completely agree with that. The other side of this, right? And this is just the duality of really looking into giving TMI throughout a movie. It requires you to talk during the movie, which may be something that people aren't into and don't want to do. Another big no-no actually leads right into our next tip. So it may seem a little counterintuitive, but I honestly think it's a really great one, which is spoiling the ending and letting them know exactly what it is that they're walking into.
Yes. It's, again, for us horror fans, we do not want to spoil the ending. I think that is why there's been such a surge of people going to see horror movies in the theater as opposed to other things, because you don't want to, if you want to be scared, you don't want to be spoiled at the jump scare or the craziness or the twist, the act 3 twist. We don't want that. But non-horror friends, they're clearly, not as loving. They don't love that adrenaline rush of being scared, and the fear of the unknown can really freak a lot of people out, make them turn around. So tell them, spoil the ending for them. A lot of times, and I like doing this with some of the formulaic movies, and I've gotten my husband into this. If he's watching something with me, even if he's just kind of coming in midway through, where we guess the jump scare. Mm-hmm. Have you ever done that, Kris? Oh, guessing the jump scare?
100%. I've played it less of a game though, and more of in the moments where I am bringing someone along. I've thought about this with a couple of ex-girlfriends that I've had, where I know that they cannot take a jump scare and it's going to turn them off of the experience. Listen, folks, as horror fans, we know where the hell that's coming. I don't think there's a lot of guessing. So I used to have little signals of like squeezing a hand 2 times, or just like putting my head on the top of her head, like, and just like giving her a moment to cuddle back in. Little gestures like that indicate, okay, something's about to happen. Let me just take off the sting, and then I can really look in and see what's happening.
Yeah, 100%. That's great little signals and everything like that. And again, then they get to start doing kind of the calculus on their own of like, I know it pisses him off and it's so funny, but he's watched the Scream movies with me, and the amount of times that they open and close fridge doors, because he's thinking like, because that's one of those things that he's gotten ingrained in his brain and stuff like that. And I think it was in the most recent one, or maybe it was where the Wes character dies, Marley Shelton's cop dies, and they were opening and closing it, and Evan was like gritting his teeth because he's like, oh, like, because he thought he had it. Guessing the jump scare is a lot of fun, and then I have found even when they fool you, you're both like, oh, that was good.
Yeah.
Like, It's almost out of respect, like game respects game of like, oh, we thought we had it and they got both of us on the jump scare. Like, and then you can kind of laugh about it.
Yeah, what I really love here, Chel, is that your approach to this is helping build a lot of skill and understanding the formula to demystify it. And it actually reminds me of just, even as I'm like led people through a horror haunt in like Halloween Horror Nights or local haunts, etc. You can kind of give away the tricks on what to look for or the pacing, and just you can anticipate what's about to come. When you're really good at like spotting patterns and developing that, then it becomes a lot easier to assess the things that are happening around you. So I think helping others build that skill is a great way to bring your scaredy cats in, make it less scary, but then also help build an appreciation for the genre.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciating like, oh, these tension points and the music and things like that. Because eventually they're going to maybe get used to those tricks, and then they're gonna say, you know what? Maybe I want a bigger challenge. You know, I've figured out this puzzle. Let's level up to the next level because I know I'm not batting zero. I've got some info in my artillery. So yeah, it's just a way to help them trump over the scariness. The director and the actor and whoever is not going to pull one over on them because they know the game.
Yeah. Now, listen, I think it's a really great strategy, but if you're still in a place, let's say you've tried all of our tips so far and they're still pretty scared, or they're just like, oh, I can't do this, but you're still in the mood for something spooky and you really want to try to find a way to bring them into that spooky season with you. There's a couple other movies that you can recommend, and it ties into your last tip, Chel, of falling back on the classics, the things that are just proven safe ground.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a lot of fun during spooky season without ever having a jump scare. Horror, you know, we talk about all the time is so inclusive and everyone's welcome. And that includes the folks who maybe it's a Beetlejuice watch. Maybe you're turning on, it's got the creepy Tim Burton vibes, but it's really not meant to scare you or pull one over on you. It's just to kind of let you soak in the creepy kind of funky vibes of it.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Beetlejuice, which again, if you start with Beetlejuice and you move over to Edward Scissorhands, maybe you can go into Sweeney Todd.
Absolutely. And it's a great way to work it up of like, okay, so you like this atmospheric, you know, like I know for Evan, he liked the atmosphere of the Tim Burton, and he felt empowered to look at the David Eggers stuff. I came home one day to him watching the new Nosferatu.
Yeah.
You know, because it was the vibe. He liked watching the vibes, you know, of it all instead of the scares.
Okay, here's the pipeline that we think we can recommend here, right? I'm thinking about a coworker of mine who is of the younger generation and had never seen Dracula before, but had seen Dracula in Hotel Transylvania. In fact, when I described who Dracula is, he said, oh, the blah, blah, blah guy. Well,
blah, blah, blah.
You start with blah, blah, blah so that you can go into Nosferatu.
Yeah, 100%. And getting them used to it. You know, another great one that is all over the place, and it honestly spans multiple seasons, is A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, yeah. That for sure for me is a November 1st movie, though. I get it. But I get it.
Me too.
Hey!
Yes, I get it. I have some students that I teach that firmly believe it's a Halloween movie, but we digress.
Yeah, it starts on Halloween. How the hell is it a Halloween movie? No, it is a perfect continue the energy of Halloween movie.
Yes.
Come on. What?
Yes, I totally agree. Absolutely. So, but that's one, you know, and that's got some creepier imagery to it. You've got some, you know, if you're kind of thinking like the monster movies, the Frankenstein of it all, that's a good monster movie sort of foray into it.
Yeah.
And
I really love that.
It's a great one.
Yeah. Okay. Another pipeline here. Start your friends with Hocus Pocus so that you can drag to the witch.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And the best part about witch movies, and they can go so many different directions. You can go David Eggers' The Witch, again, with that atmospheric, and I will say, horror novice husband Evan, he likes an atmospheric slow burn better than I do. I like getting to the point, but he likes those. He likes to sit and chill in the creepy vibes. So absolutely with Hocus Pocus, that pipeline I think is great for him. But we got a lot of other movies where witches are really actively playing into it. I'm thinking of The Wretched, Hellbender. Yes, The Craft. The Craft is a great level 2 almost. Like, oh, you want some lady witches?
Yeah, apparently Practical Magic.
Practical Magic. That's a good one. I actually just watched that this morning. That's a feel-good rom-com for me. It's so good.
Love that. That's so good. You can also spike in Charmed if you like, or Sabrina the Teenage Witch, or The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Yes, absolutely. All really familiar IP from different angles. Another great one is Supernatural.
Yeah, that's really good.
A lot of the movies, especially around witches or folk horror, especially, there's a really great pipeline from like Supernatural into some of the folk horrors like The Ritual and things like that, kind of because those legends are there and they've already been kind of framed in like maybe a little bit more of a lighthearted Monster of the Week way. And then, of course, they already, again, it's familiar. They kind of know the rules of like, ooh, mirrors or things like that they can go in not fully blind. They feel like they've got something in their corner to hang on to.
You know what I think we need to do, Chel?
Tell me.
We need to do a blog post or a presentation, maybe a community event where it's like a keynote party or a PowerPoint party. And we do pipelines. We do starter to, I don't know what the last grade is, but the starter kit and then how it graduates up in steps following the same theme, right? So like witches, for example, thinking about urban legends and thinking about even Candyman. Man, I think there's some good stuff there.
Yes. And we would be remiss if we didn't mention probably the best gateway IP that can go in so many different directions, but it's Scooby-Doo.
Oh, Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Where are you?
Where are you?
I love Scooby-Doo so much. I'm a big Scooby-Doo fan. I used to have Scooby-Doo sheets and plushies when I was a child. I was fucking down. Scooby-Doo is a reason why I want to be a detective for a significant portion of my life or get into private investigation of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, and especially, and I remember looking back, I loved Scooby-Doo. Watched it all the time growing up. We had the movies, the Alien Invaders, Zombie Island. Didn't realize until much later. I'm like, oh, I've always kind of been around horror. Like I watched Zombie Island the other day. I'm like, this is a fucking horror movie. It's a fantastic one. But, and that's one, you put it on. Everyone loves Scooby-Doo and they have that comedy balance to it. But it's a good litmus test.
Ooh, I'm thinking about the Hex Girls too. Okay, here's my recommendation for you all, folks. I want you to start with Scooby-Doo, whichever cartoon you want. Then I want you to progress into Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island, then progress into Scooby-Doo the live action films, then progress into I Know What You Did Last Summer, and then progress into Scream 2 with Sarah Michelle Gellar, and then progress into one of the newer Scream movies, etc. You know what I mean? Like, just take it in almost 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but Scooby-Doo, and then wind up at the hardest fucking horror movie that you can possibly latch onto. Not that Scream is, but like keep it escalating from there.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I don't think any of us realized, but we were already being introduced to the slasher calculus.
Yeah, we were really.
You got the pretty girl, you got the stoner, you got the leader of the pack, you got the smart girl, the final girl almost. Even though obviously Scooby-Doo, no one's ever really dying, but you were already introduced to those tropes. I mean, there is a pipeline from Scooby-Doo to the Cabin in the Woods.
Oh God, this needs its own blog post show.
I was going to say, we could go down this rabbit hole, and then of course from there, Cabin in the Woods, that's one. Horror Novice Husband, first time I watched it, he called it.
Oh, that's so
from
great.
The beginning.
I love that.
He was like, it's fake. It's this, it's that. And I'm like,
don't they introduce you to that though? The fact that it's fake pretty early?
Kind of. I mean, they try to make it coy of like, this is happening and this is also happening. Like, I literally, like, I'm pretty sure it was when Bradley Whitford and Richard Dreyfuss, like, get on the golf carts and are driving around. Like, I don't even know if we'd met the people. It's like, oh, so it's all fake. Like, oh, it's all crafted. And I'm just like, what? Like, so the calculus is there. But then, yeah, you get the Scooby Gang. How many times do we see a Scooby Gang in Evil Dead and in Friday the 13th, you know? So we're already introduced and laying that groundwork for anything.
We were indoctrinated at a young age, Chel.
We were.
Wow.
God bless.
What a great thing to be indoctrinated by, though.
I mean, it was so great. It was such a pivotal moment. And it was funny because it was from the 60s. I didn't realize that until I was in like middle school. I'm like, oh, this wasn't just coming on every week in the 90s. Like, oh no, this was like from the 1960s that was still, you know, still forming minds of children all over the world today and making them love horror.
Oh, gosh. So great. Incredible.
So great.
We owe Scooby-Doo a debt of gratitude on this podcast. And while I absolutely think we need to continue the Scooby-Doo love and perhaps do the Scooby-Doo to insane horror movie pipeline, I also want to draw back. Chel, you wrote an incredible piece last year at a spooky season all about how to train your scaredy cat. And I think you provided an excellent starter guide there.
Yeah, it was actually one of my first blogs last year that I wrote for the spooky season and for Hacker Slash. And yeah, again, very much inspired by the work I had done with my own resident scaredy cat to at least make him comfortable with watching horror movies every now and then in the house or, you know, going on a date night to the theater. So yeah, that blog is still up. It is called How to Train Your Scaredy Cat 101. So very much an inspo for this bonus episode, but definitely go there, check in. There's a lot more info and suggestions for you to pull from. And hopefully that sparks it in your own life of who are the scaredy cats in your life? How do you identify them? And how can you bring them into the fold and make them feel welcome and part of this community?
Absolutely. And speaking of that community, listen, with these tips and tricks, you're going to be able to convert your non-horror friends in no time. We're confident in that. And then when you successfully do that, please bring them around. Enroll them in Hacker/University. Bring them into the Discord. Have them follow our socials. We want to meet them and we want to hear what their pipeline was to that conversion. There's always more room for our fellow scaredy cats here at Hacker/University and in our family.
Yes, and that is the best part about Hacker Slash because there is such a wide breadth. We all have the flavors of fear we fancy most. We introduce that at the beginning of every episode. And we want you to come in. We want, even our seasoned horror fans, we were all scaredy cats at some point. I don't care if you were 3 years old or 33 years old. There was a starting point for you. Mm-hmm. And we'd love to hear about the scaredy cats in your life, current or reformed, and where you started. What started it all for you? What made you turn towards the horror dark side or light side, if you'd like to think of it that way?
Oh, yeah. We're looking forward to your reports. That is your homework. The assignments are due by the end of spooky season. But for now, class is dismissed.